There it goes.
Here you go. All right. You see, we're a great team. Okay.
Okay. I'll take care of the admits.
All right. There's, and you got in, Gail. Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody. We are plowing through this. We had some last minute changes and we are very flexible and we're working it through. So welcome. Welcome everybody to another wonderful program of Cafe Cinematheque. I'm Marilyn London and membership chairman of the Friends of the Stirling Road Library. And I see many friends in the gallery, so thank you all so very much. It's because of your generosity that we are able to have the fabulous programs that we have, and Shelly is a prime example. And you know, we have many, several others, Robert Watson, Boccia Cone, the music program from last night. We had a great 10 days of connection where our programs were really special again, as we have for the past couple of years, and it's onward and outward. I don't have what's in the calendar in front of me because I wasn't expecting to do this, but you should all be getting your newsletters. Please read your newsletters. That gives you the ability to register for our programs. It gives you the highlights of what we are offering. And if you're not getting your newsletter, please make sure you get in touch with me or Hannah, because it's important that you get them, since you are a member and you deserve to get them. So there you go. I'm sure I'm forgetting many things, but so be it. I'm glad you are all here. I saw the movie and I thought it was quite interesting. Should leave for a very good critique and some super discussion. So Shelly, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Marilyn. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you. Thank you all for coming. We got a nice large crowd this evening. This is terrific.
A minute, Shelly, just make sure everybody's muted though. Please, everybody mute.
Yes, please. They're all muted. They are. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. And tonight, let me get started with the film. Tonight's film, this is our last in this series of Oscar contenders. We've done a lot of good Oscar contenders. This is the last one in the series. This one is from 2004. It is entitled As It Is in Heaven. As It Is in Heaven. It is from Sweden. It's an interesting film, but let me tell you about the director's name is Kai Pollak. Kai Pollak was 66 when he directed this film. It was only his third film. And truth be told, he is not really a filmmaker by trade. He was a dedicated university professor of statistical mathematics, who has also been involved in what he calls happiness training and working with groups, developing dynamics for better communication through exercises for better expressing one's emotions, which we see in the film, by the way, basically social dynamics. And where As It Is in Heaven is concerned, it does just that, covering all the bases. There's romance, eccentric characters, idyllic summer romps through the rural Swedish countryside, spousal abuse, small town hypocrisy, intolerance, rebellion against an emotionally starved religious authority, and finally, a loving community healed by the power of music and empathy. One would think that's enough to get into a film. Anyway, it's set in a seemingly idyllic village in rural Sweden. As It Is in Heaven splits the difference between heartwarming small town comedy of an outsider bonding with eccentric inhabitants and a thorny drama of the insular town that turns its head to the ugly truths beneath the gentle surface. When we first see him, he is a workaholic musician turned internationally renowned classic musical conductor Daniel Darius. As he says in the opening, ever since I was a little boy, I had a dream to create music to open people's hearts. He explains in those opening scenes an idyllic moment of a child playing, we see a child playing violin in a sunny field. And then he's all of a sudden attacked by a group of boys. And like so many moments of his life, another twist in a portrait of a cruel world trying to beat his dreams down. Orphaned as a young teen, he's raised by a manager and thrown into a career without a seeming personal life. His passion for music and drive for perfection get twisted into a kind of tyranny as he conducts as if battling a demon, sweating and bleeding at the beginning until it finally takes its toll with a heart attack. Prescribed complete rest and being told his heart is worn out. He now has a completely cleared calendar. As you know, cinematically, we drive through that white light and all of a sudden it's snow. He buys an abandoned schoolhouse in his childhood village. His first encounter is with Connie, who turns out to be the bully. He is the unseen driver of the truck that almost runs his car down. And then he meets the pastor, and which leads us to an auspicious first taste of this place. No one, above all Connie, remembers the little boy who was bullied for his dedication to music. We find out his name was changed by his manager, and he's not quick to remind them as well. He's merely there, as he says, to hear the silence in isolation, at least until he sees the friendly blonde grocer, Lena, and meets the local blowhard entrepreneur and town booster, Arnie, who draw him into the church choir. To his own surprise, he offers himself as the church cantor and choir leader. The pastor, who has the cold restraint and chilly authority of, if you've ever seen an Ingmar Bergman film with Max von Sydow as a priest or even a stern elder, the pastor in this film would remind you of that. A chilly, severe man under an unsure smile, and much to his chagrin and seemingly jealous nature, he nervously watches the small group take on a life of its own as Daniel helps the members of the small town choir find their voices in every way. Musically, they discover rich sounds and inspiring harmonies that they never imagined themselves capable of. We see them going through those exercises, lying on the floor with each head on his stomach, laughing. Those are all social dynamic exercises that come out of encounter groups. Anyway, we see them laughing and enjoying each other, while personally they become empowered to speak up and speak out against injustices they have all collectively kept silent about. We notice all of these things coming to the surface. Of course, at the beginning, Darius sees Connie beating up Gabriella, and he runs to help her, and he almost gets killed in the interim when Connie takes out his gun and starts to shoot. We see what I call in this film tonal shifts. We go from comedy all of a sudden into dramatic moments. We get these what I call tonal shifts, and sometimes they're jarring, but they all have meaning. And it's all about life. Life goes from a happy moment to a sad one, a tragic one, or a dramatic one, very quickly. So we see all of this happening. And for all these characters, each one finding their voice, they are each given a moment to speak out in the film. What I love about the film is he doesn't ignore any of these characters. He gives them all their moment in the sun. There are frequent accusations of injustice, as when Homfrid strikes back at Arnie for calling him fatty, for constantly picking. He said, ever since school, you picked on me. And he goes after him and they start fighting. Or there's a stand of self-actualization as each of the major figures sounds off. And it leads to recognition of them. And finally, a communal embrace. The screenplay invests us in the potential of these characters as they flower under Daniel's nurturing direction. Their steps towards clearing the air and healing neglected wounds ultimately pulls them together, and they evolve into a community bonded over the shared music, the food. Communal meals become part of the rehearsal ritual. In fact, they calm people down. When Daniel starts to get worked up at them, he's reminded it's coffee time. And they begin to play and enjoy each other. And finally, they find a sense of responsibility for one another. They even admit their hidden feelings of love, especially when that older choir member admits that he harbored a love for Florence ever since they were in grade school. If you remember that scene when they're sitting around the table, and he said, I finally feel Florence, I can tell you, and she gets so flustered, she has to leave the room. I thought maybe at that point she'd slap him silly and say, what took you so long? However, they don't always lose their prickly edges. These characters don't quickly lose their ability to bully one another. There are several types of bullying in this film, as there's Connie, there's Anna, there's a number of them, but they are certainly all smoothed down a bit as their concern for one another develops. As I said, when Holmford finally lets Arnie have it, which in that scene is brought to a close when Gabriella starts to sing her song. And that's an incredible moment in the film I'll get back to in a moment. Through it all, we watch the emotionally guarded Daniel, which he is throughout the film, connect with the townspeople, especially Lena, who is herself recovering from emotional wounds of her own. And it's done with a compassion and affection that he has, we assume, denied himself in his lonely professional career. He is finally able to open up, something he probably hasn't done since he was a child. He allows himself to desire, to empathize, to be inspired by these people. So inspired that he writes Gabriella's song to give voice and support to her being abused, who as a result of her show-stopping performance, give his lyrics a power beyond words, but will also, unfortunately, provoke more violence against her on Connie's part. Among some of the great scenes in the film, I especially enjoyed it when Inga goes after her husband, when she goes after Steve, the pastor, for his true lack of moral fiber and his holier-than-thou attitude toward Daniel. Thanks to Daniel, she attacks his icy emotions, and there's a reveal that she always knew what he did and produces the porno magazines that he thought were always hidden. She also symbolically attacks the distortion of religious values that he preached, especially when she says, sin is a big fat lie. It is an invention of the church so it can offer absolution. There is no sin, and there's no need for forgiveness. God doesn't forgive because he is never condemned. And at that point, she begins to wear down. She tempts him into bed, and you think, oh, great, she's converting him back to being human. And he wakes up the next day and finds him praying and says, last night never happened. Last night never happened. What a jerk. Anyway, later on, when Daniel saves the pastor in a tense scene where he wants to kill both Daniel and himself, even blaming Daniel for his downfall, Daniel feels exhilarated by the moment. And it's beautifully shot. When he starts to suffocate, he takes him down and he's holding him. And we see the reflection in the desk. It's almost like a portrait, almost like a Rubenesque portrait. from the Middle Ages of again, our Savior here, Daniel. But he feels so exhilarated by the act, he metaphorically runs out and baptizes himself in the water. Think of that as a baptism. He runs in, he's rejuvenated, and he runs into the water. And again, at that moment, tonal shift, total tonal shift. Connie drives by, sees him in the water, and beats him to a pulp. And in the immediate second scene, next scene, we see the three women, Inga, Lena, and Gabriella, dragging him on that bloody sheet. And it's reminiscent of Christ being cared for after he's been taken down off the cross. The women tending to him. He is in the shroud, so to speak. And in the final act of the film, when they all come back and they go off to let the people sing concert in Austria, he exclaims to his former mentor, "These people love me and I love them." The smile on his face and in his eyes are all we need to know that this once unexplored territory for this once unforgivingly driven professional, and it gives him new life. It has given him new life. He finally consummates his relationship with Lena, who immediately feels that they're going to have to paint another little angel on the wall in the schoolhouse. And he cannot, and though he runs out now and he's riding the bike, and notice he's riding the bike among children. He's riding the bike among children as he races back to the concert hall, but he will not be permitted to be part of that concert. As he runs up the stairs, his heart begins to give out. He bangs his head, and as he's lying there while they're all waiting for him, we hear them all joining in a sound. They create that sound of harmony that he talked about at the beginning, the music that will open up everyone's heart. They all join in, which brings a kind of rapture beyond explanation. And the man with the damaged heart has managed to create music that has opened everyone's heart. Darius ultimately becomes the reluctant savior. The film becomes an allegory. He is the outsider. He is the savior. He comes in and saves this community through the choir, through their voices in every way. He gets themselves in every way. Musically, they discover rich sounds and inspiring harmonies that they never imagined themselves capable of. While personally, they all become empowered to speak up and speak out against the injustices that they have all collectively kept silent about. As it is in heaven was Sweden's entry to the 2005 Academy Awards. It was one of the five final nominees. Unfortunately, it didn't win. But in one sense, it was a film that covered all the bases, all of those bases I spoke of at the beginning. Michael Nyqvist, who starred in the film, you may have recognized him, who portrays Daniel, was one of Sweden's most popular actors who rose to international prominence and acclaim when he starred in the series The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. All of those films. He became internationally prominent as a result of it and starred in many films, including a James Bond film. Sadly, he passed away at the age of 57 in 2017 from lung cancer. Frida Hallgren, who plays Lena, is a popular movie and TV actress in Sweden and has been for many years. Helen Sjöholm, who plays Gabriella, that was her singing in the film. She is still one of Sweden's biggest stars on the musical stage. This was her first film. She had been a star on the musical stage, and they finally got her to make the film. She hasn't made many films as she really is committed to the stage. In fact, most of the featured cast in the film are very prominent, well-known film and TV actors in Sweden. The cinematography beautifully captures the isolated locations of rural Sweden and how they're affected by the changes in season. We go through the cycle of the seasons in the film, and they help to provide us with this honest sense of place that only enhances the feeling of the human truth provided by the screenplay and the performances. The music score is absolutely lovely, and the use of music, whether it be classical, whether it be popular, it all adds to the flavor of the film. By the end, in a little note, by the end of 2007, this film had played in the same Sydney, Australia movie theater every day for 2 straight years. Every day for 2 straight years, it became the most popular film in Australia. This is exactly what critics mean when they say it's a feel-good film, filled with tropes, melodrama, and characters that we're all too familiar with, yet it earns our interest and above all our forgiveness for any of the cinematic sins it may have done, being familiar. Because as Inga says, sin is a big fat lie and forgiveness is everything. Thanks to the compassion and conviction of Kai Pollak, the director, we can forgive those sins. And that's my breakdown of the film. And now we'll continue. I'd like to do it now through discussion. Hopefully you have some questions, comments, and I'd love to hear them. So just raise your hand. There's also a way to raise your hand video-wise on the screen, and I'll see it. So who's going to go first? Who's going to go first? Drazia, thank you.
I really loved the movie. One of the things that I really appreciated in the, I guess in the way it was put together, for lack of a better word, is there was nothing gratuitous. You know, there were no gratuitous scenes or even dialogue. Everything was purposeful.
Yes.
And sometimes it just cut to black. And then the next scene opened and it was perfect that way. And one particular thing that you didn't mention that just really made me chuckle is one of the scenes in the church where when they had been practicing and the pastor stormed out and the crucifix fell off the wall. And I just looked at it and I laughed.
Yes.
It was like so perfect.
Yeah, and it barred the door from getting back in. I mean, it was a wonderful scene. And I do that, just so you know, I do that on purpose. I don't want to include everything because of people like you who call a scene. You know, it leaves it open for this conversation. So thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Arlette.
Unmute, okay.
I just did. The very opening of the movie, when he's hugging his mother, and he speaks to her and wants that love so deeply. As the movie continues and he's brought everybody together, he has finally achieved and gotten the love that he's always wanted as a child, but somehow never came about by him being raised by that gentleman. That's what I love, that he finally got the love that he wanted as a child. And it was very profound when he found it.
Yes, especially, you know, at the beginning when she says that to him, she tells him, he looks up, he says, when I grow up, I'm going to marry you. He says to his mother. But yes, in the end, that confirmation comes at the very last scene when he's reunited with his younger self. He has found that heavenly moment, so to speak. Yeah. Marilyn.
So it made me think while I was watching the movie, how realistic it is that people who have this enormous fame and these enormous followings and all of the things that you think are so wonderful they're probably quite lonely because they miss those close relationships and they miss the love. And I think this is so poignant in here, but I think it's very common.
Yes, yes. Oh, I believe that. I believe that
Yeah.
there are sacrifices that have to be made. And you know, these are supreme sacrifices that if you want to follow that path, you wind up sacrificing maybe married life, you know, whatever it is, you know, you're going to be sacrificing something. It becomes an either or situation. I mean, this is the famous philosopher Kierkegaard said that we are forced into choices in our life, an either or. And in this case, it becomes an either or. And now, but he learns that he can come back and he can find this, you know, he can find it. And he finds it by going back to his childhood. It's, you know, by seemingly wanting to go back to that place where he said he was happiest. He said he was happiest there. And he returns and he finds that, I guess you can go home again. He finds that happiness through these people. It's interesting, you know, I talk about the tonal shift, and I'm glad you remind me of it because it happens at the very beginning when he comes and he steps out into the snow barefoot. He feels the nature of the place. He's excited. He is like a child again. And it's exciting, you know, and he feels that. And then in the next moment, he sees, you know, he takes a picture of the rabbit. And then all of a sudden, you know, the pastor shows up and invites him out to dinner. And he says, "No, I'm just here to relax, to take it easy." And the pastor leaves. He walks outside and there's Connie, who shoots the rabbit. You know, and then bangs it against the thing. You know, we get that tonal shift. You know, we begin to see character. We begin to see how these characters behave. The pastor has a gun, he fixes, and he's killing the bunny. I mean, it just, you know, it just gives us this introduction to one of the characters in the town, and he just gets worse and worse. But it also shows how his spousal abuse is finally met with. He's arrested and separated. So we see that. Jackie, yes, come on in.
I had two things. One was I thought that the characters actually were more characterizations than anything else. And I thought they were actually almost extreme. And yet it really worked in that movie for some reason. I mean, each one of them took whatever their issue was to the extreme, but it all worked together well. And the only other thing I was going to say is you just mentioned you can go home again. And actually, I'm not sure I totally agree with that, Shelly, because he's not the same person. And even though there are characteristics that are the same, the people aren't the same people either. So while they have similarities to what they used to be, you can tell, even like with Connie, as brutal as he is and what a bully he is, when he sits there and cries because she's talking about he may not be able to see the kids anymore, that is a different person than what he was before. So I thought it was very interesting.
What it is, and in part, I agree with you, but he does go home again because he's gone back and he's transformed all these people. He's managed to transform all of them. They were, you know, they were the same people, and now they're all changing. Humfred finally goes back, you know, and goes after Arnie. We see Inga. Now, they weren't there when he was there. They had come in much later, but we see her changed by the experience, and she goes after her husband and says he's just a blowhard and he's a fake, you know, and he talks out of two sides of his mouth. But the thing is, in a sense, he has gone home, and yes, there are changes, but he's made it, in a sense, he's made it the place he wanted it to be. He wanted to find peace, and his reuniting with himself at the end gives him that peace, in a sense. You know, he's probably died at that moment, and you know, is reunited with his little self. But you know, it leaves it open. it is an ambiguity, and they are all archetypes. As you said, they're characters, they're archetypes. The bully, the abused wife, all of these people, the jealous woman, they're all archetypes in the film. But yet it does work. It manages to work because it draws us in. It's compelling. It's compelling. Thank you. Thank you. Dresha.
Yeah, that was a great point that Jackie brought up that I hadn't really thought about, but they are, and you just said they were all archetypes. The one that we really didn't talk about, though, it was the jealous one. I think Siv, was that her name, Siv?
Yes.
And she really didn't change.
No.
She was, like she was holding on to it. Even at the end, you could see a difference in Stig. You could see that it got through to him, that something happened, that he had changed. What was going to be was up for question, but there were changes to him. But she didn't. She just stayed with it and didn't let go. And we all know people like that.
Yeah, I mean, he imbued them with the ability to open up. They did those exercises, through the singing, through everything. He gave them voice. And that's really what it's all about. It's about communication. Ultimately, the film is about communicating. We communicate through music. We communicate through, expression. And that's what he does for them. That's what he does. He gives them the voice. It's funny because he gives them exactly, what the pastor is supposed to be giving them and doesn't. In a way, he is, in a sense, the savior in the film, yet he's not the religious one. It points out what religion has done. Religion has silenced them, whereas now they're able to open up through his religion of music. Marilyn?
I also felt along the lines of what the discussion has been, that one of the things that I saw in the people who changed the most was the level of honesty within themselves. They shed their own layers. They were able to be more honest with themselves, maybe more responsible. And when they let that go, then a part of them was able to give them their own voice.
Yeah, very well put. And it also comes with nature, because as the winter thaws, they become much more honest. As they're moving towards Easter, as they're, we notice that now he's riding the bike and they go out, he goes out with Lena and he gives it a kiss and she's like taken aback and he's taken aback. He's not ready to open up completely yet. And it isn't until the whole place thaws out that they all start to thaw as well. Very interestingly done cinematically. Anybody else? Come on.
Yeah. My name is Marilee. I can't find the raise the hand, but I wanted to ask you, Shelley, I understand there's a sequel called Heaven on Earth. Do you know anything about it?
Yes, I do, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
It was not very well received. It was, it's one of those lessons is don't take a great film and try to make a sequel. Because this film stands by itself. What happens in that one is he has died. It's a year or two later. Lena has had a baby, his baby. And we see life going on in the village and different changes that have taken place. I haven't seen this film, was never released here. But from what I read about it, it's you're not missing anything. You're not missing
Thank
anything.
you.
I don't want to destroy your image of this film.
No, you can't do that. I thought it was superb.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. Maurice.
One of the most memorable scenes that I've ever seen in movies, it was the compassion that Lena showed when the imbecile Torn had defecated in his pants, and she turns to the audience around her and says, "Haven't any of you ever shit in your pants?" And she goes and we see some cleaning his behind, and then he approaches her. I thought this compassion was compelling. And he looks at her, he says, "I want those 3 words, those three words, this is the imbecile there in the movie. The three words, I love you. And she says, I love you.
Yeah.
To me, this is one of the most touching, memorable scenes I have ever seen in film.
That's wonderful, Maurice. Yes, it is a very touching scene, a very real scene. You know, on interpreting. It's a grace note. It's a grace note on behalf of Lena towards him, and understanding. And again, the idea of we're all responsible for each other. That this community has to show responsibility for each other. Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Anybody else? Any hands? Jackie, welcome back.
It's interesting. You just said we're all responsible for each other. And that's what I just leaned over to Larry and said, I'm not sure that Daniel could have done it on his own. I think he needed all of them, but he particularly needed her because in a lot of ways, she was really the catalyst for everybody's change and the real heart of the village. And I thought that was very important.
Yeah, I mean, she was also suffering. Remember, she talked about her relationship with a guy that lied to her, the doctor that lied to her, that he was married and left. So she was also suffering. And yes, it's mutual. It's mutual. And I think that's what's important is it's never, you know, nobody's alone. We need each other to heal each other, to bring all of this out. You know, yes, she is part of that. She's an integral part of that, but she's that angel that he sees and immediately falls in love with. You know, when he sees she's wearing the little crown when he first sees her in the store, and she's crying, and she's a weeping angel, and he immediately is taken by her. And then she talks about the paintings on the wall that her grandfather did. It was very, very, very interesting how he interprets these characters. But yes, each one needs the other. That's the responsibility. They were all part of that chain. When they lie down on the ground and they feel each other's bodies, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Thank you, Susan. Susan.
I was going to say that I was talking to someone this afternoon about the film that I was going to come tonight. And one thing that really struck me, we've been going through these 10 days of connection, and a lot of the things that we have done all involve community and being part of a community. And this film was so apropos to what we're trying to say, is to respect each other's differences and to be honest with each other and to look at everything in that way. And I thought the movie was really very, very interesting because it sort of ended like it began. To me, it was like a circle. And I sort of expected the ending that, you know, he sort of had this smile on his face, listening to the voices of what he had developed, and he had found his voice, which was the most beautiful thing to me. And I really found this film very interesting. I have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, you should. You should always watch a film more than once. I mean, I demand that. I demand that.
I do.
Good. But it's interesting because, yes, you're recalling that scene and symbolically and cinematically, the construction of that scene, he's lying there and he's looking up and the sound is coming from above. Right. The sound is coming from above. The sound is coming from the heavens. And it's, you know, it's clarion call. And it's interesting how that whole scene is constructed in a way that's beautiful. But yes, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. It is about connection. Drazia.
Yeah, was it mentioned about Lena's suffering, and I think her suffering, yes, she was suffering because of the relationship, but I think that I got the sense that her suffering was intensified by the fact that everybody knew and nobody told her.
Yes, so, very good. Yes, that was that whole scene when he follows her up the hill and she said, "You all knew." You know, it's yes, that hurt. That hurt.
So I think that I got a sense that probably hurt her more than what the doctor did. Than the doctor, you know, lying to her. The fact that all of her friends, all of these people knew and nobody told her.
You're right. I mean, now you're getting to the whole dynamic again, is an understanding what motivates these characters,
Right.
and the communication they lacked. Terrific. Thank you, Marilyn.
In addition to the love, it makes me think, while listening to this, that because of where they were and what they came with, the baggage they brought with them to where it is, they had to really build up trust again. Trust to be able to, well, I guess the word is just trust somebody else and trust themselves to make a good choice. I think trust was a very big issue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Drescher points out, the fact that the town never told Lena about the doctor. They also were letting Connie abuse Gabriella. They all knew about it. They all let it kept happening. They let it keep happening. They didn't stop the bully. And that's what happens. And, finally, they realize, when he comes, they won't let him near her at that point. And his only recourse is to destroy the car. He's just constant destruction.
Even Whole, was it Whole Free, the heavy one,
Yes.
And he said he said to them, and all of you let him do this all these years, and you just laughed.
Yeah, each of them had their point about everybody else.
Yeah.
Arlette?
Also, at one point in the film, Arnie was belittling Lena, that inferring that she goes out with this one and she goes out with that one, and he really did a job on her, and belittling her to the point where Daniel now hears all of this, and what is it going to lead to? That's what I wondered as the film went on. After Arnie just spelt it all that out, what was going to happen next?
Yeah.
Was Daniel going to figure it out on his own? Or eventually, which it did prove out to be.
Yes, thank you. Maurice, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just thinking that perhaps the town needed the doctor more than they were willing to admit to open up to Lena. And they were fearful that they would lose the doctor.
Yeah. It's an interesting way of looking at it. I hope not, but it is an interesting way to look at it. Jackie?
When Maurice said about the most meaningful moment for him, I actually thought the most meaningful moment was at the very end. It was the 58 seconds. He had talked earlier about the most wonderful moment of his life was when the group, there was no lights, they couldn't see him, they couldn't do anything, but they all found their music. And as he was, we're all assuming laying dying, he heard them and the audience. It wasn't just his choir, it was everyone found their music. So I thought that actually brought everything all the way around, because that was his 58 seconds again.
Yeah, well, it's nice. I mean, you can all pick out your moments in the film. I mean, and I think that's great because there were a lot of them. I particularly, I am collective in all of this because there's so many wonderful scenes that drive the film, that connect structurally. The structure of the film, how he's brought into this town, how he deals with each incident, how they deal with each other, how they open up. I mean, it really is a very well structured film, and that's what I get. But yes, I mean, there is and thank you for reminding us of that 58 seconds. Is when the music was pulled down, as he says, it came down on them in the darkness. The same thing, and then it is reconnected at the end as it comes down from above. So in a sense, it's an admission of faith, that things will, at the darkest moment, things can come together. things can come together and people can come together. And that was a dark moment for him at the end as well. And it's interesting that the voices we hear, some of it begins to sound like Tibetan chants. Some of it it was all different.
Yeah.
All of these people were standing up and interpreting the sound. And it was wonderful how you got this international interpretation of sound, of music, so to speak. All of them expressing themselves in their own way. Was wonderful. Anybody else? Anybody else out there? No? Any takers? None? Okay, Marilyn, do you want to?
Shelley, can we now tell them about the wonderful news about the summer?
That's what I was just going to ask you.
We have been very fortunate, and thank you guys for your wonderful support. We are able to bring Shelley back for a fabulous six critiques of movies that we chose that I know you will love. And the next one will be on the 20th of June, and that's the only June one, and it's called Friends, which I don't know if any of you have seen it. I've seen it and I loved it. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Watch your newsletters. It will be a new registration because this is the last one of this registration. So register over again for the next series. And if you love this series, you will absolutely also love the next one. The movies that Shelley chose are awesome.
Yeah, the theme for the summer is simply summer at the Stirling. I picked a number of diverse cultures, languages, and stories. It's about storytelling. It's certainly about storytelling. The films I picked, some of them are based on real life. Some are costume. In a sense, they deal with a specific period of time, not contemporary, such as France. The first one takes place at the end of World War I. It's an interesting, it is a love story. It's also a revelation. It's a wonderful film. And you'll see among the selections that we've managed to put together. I think you'll enjoy the summer, and I look forward to all of the time. I'm excited about it, as I was about these. So thank you all for your contribution to the conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shelley.
It's been
So
fun.
much.
Thank
See you
you.
on June 20th. I'll see you on June
Thank
20th.
you, Shelley.
Oh,
Looking
wait a
forward.
minute, Ellie, switch to Monday nights.
Oh, yes.
Watch your newsletter, make sure. We did choose that, we did change it. Shelley will be Monday, Bocce will
Monday
be
night.
Thursday, New Yorker will be Wednesday. It's all different for the summer only.
Okay, all
You'll get the
right.
information, don't worry.
You're
Thank
trying to
you.
mix us up.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you
thank
again for a
you.
wonderful evening.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
You have to stop the recording.
Oh. Okay. I didn't realize we had chats. Oh, they're happy I'm coming back.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding? We had a nice attendance tonight.
Yeah, that was amazing. I couldn't believe
Yes,
how many
it
people
was
showed up.
really, yeah, it was excellent.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And as I said, I'll send out, what I can do is I can send out one of my newsletters with all the films.
That would be so awesome.
So this way I'll have all the dates. What I don't want to do is I just want to direct them to the library. I don't want to give them any links.
I
want
understand.
them to come, hopefully join, and then you'll give them the links.
Right. Well, there was a new person on tonight I saw.
Yeah, because I will extol the virtues of joining.
I know. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's important. I
Yeah.
do it for the program, so definitely.
Okay. So is the recording still on?
No, it shouldn't be.
It says recording.